Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're jumping into a really big idea in education. What if a report card wasn't just the end of the story, but the beginning of a real conversation? We're going to dig into the International Baccalaureate, or IB system, to see how it flips assessment on its head, turning it from a simple grade into a powerful tool for student growth. Let's get right into it.
So let's kick things off with a question I think we can all relate to. We've all seen them. An A, a B-, a 75% on a report card. But what's the actual story behind that number? Does it capture that brilliant question a student asked in class, or the creative hurdle they finally cleared on a project? A lot of the time, nope. It's just a single, flat data point.
And that right there is the core shift in thinking. See, the traditional way can feel a bit like a full stop, a final judgment that just ends the conversation. The IB philosophy, though, sees it totally differently. It's not an endpoint, it's a starting point for growth, built on a whole collection of evidence that tells a much richer and honestly a way more interesting story.
So to really get why this move from just a grade to a conversation is so important, we have to look past the classroom tools and really dive into the core philosophy that's driving an IB education. What's the end game here?
Just check out the language in this quote. The goal isn't just about churning out students who can memorize facts for a test. It's about nurturing curious, compassionate people who actually love to learn for their whole lives. And to do that, you can't have students just passively waiting for grades. They have to be active players in their own education.
And this whole philosophy really comes to life in this powerful, continuous cycle. It all starts with inquiry, where students are encouraged to ask their own questions. From there, they move to action, where they actually test their ideas and get their hands dirty. And then, and this is so crucial, they reflect on that process. Sharing the evidence of their learning is what fuels that reflection. It's what lets them ask, okay, what worked, what didn't, and what am I going to try next?
All right, so how does the IB take this really big philosophy and make it a practical day-to-day process? Well, it's all built around a framework of 4 key assessment dimensions that work together to tell that whole story. First up, you've got monitoring. Think of this like a daily pulse check on learning. It's all that ongoing, informal stuff that happens in the moment. A quick chat, a thoughtful question from the teacher, or just observing a student working. It's not about getting a score. It's about getting immediate, helpful feedback to guide what happens next.
Next, there's documenting. This is where all that evidence we've been talking about comes into play. It's the process of collecting real, tangible proof of learning. The essays, the projects, maybe even videos or lab reports. This documentation is what makes the invisible process of learning totally visible, creating this amazing record of a student's journey.
Then you have measuring. Now, this is probably the one we're all most familiar with. It's that point-in-time snapshot, like a test or a big final project, that shows what a student knows at one specific moment. And in the IB framework, it's definitely a valuable piece of data. But, and this is key, it's just one piece of a much, much bigger puzzle.
And finally, we've got reporting. This is where everything comes together. It's the act of sharing that whole story. The ongoing monitoring, the documented evidence, the specific measurements with everyone involved. It's all about making sure we all understand not just the what of a student's progress, but the how and the why behind it too.
Okay, so we've got the big idea and the framework, but what does this actually look like day to day? Let's check out some of the powerful strategies the IB uses to make that learning journey visible and shareable for everyone.
One of the absolute cornerstones is the learning portfolio. And listen, this is not just some folder where you stick your A+ papers. It's more like a curated exhibition of a student's work over time. And it's often chosen by the student to show not just the shiny final product, but the messy, beautiful process of how they got there. And when you peek inside one of these portfolios, you really see how collaborative this whole thing is. You'll find goals that the students set for themselves, work they helped pick out, and feedback not just from teachers, but from their parents too. And most importantly, it includes the students' own reflections on their work, which brings that whole inquiry, action, reflection cycle full circle.
Now, gathering all this evidence in a portfolio is one thing, but there's another strategy that takes all this work and uses it to completely flip the script on the classic parent-teacher conference, putting the student right in the driver's seat of their own story.
It's called the student-led conference. So instead of the teacher reporting to the parents about the student actually prepares for and leads the meeting. They use their portfolio as evidence, they talk about their strengths and challenges, and they're an active part of setting their own goals for the future. They literally own the narrative of their education.
So, after all of this, the portfolios, the conferences, the constant feedback, what does it all add up to? Why is this whole process so incredibly important? What's the real lasting impact on the person doing the learning? Wow, the payoff is huge. By making students real partners in their own assessment, you're not just teaching them history or math. You're teaching them how to learn. They become more self-aware, they learn how to plan and stick with things, and they build the kind of confidence that only comes from really understanding and owning your educational journey. These are the real skills of a lifelong learner.
When you boil it all down, it really comes back to this one fundamental shift. It's a move away from assessment being this passive experience, something that's just done to a student. Instead, it becomes this dynamic, collaborative process that is done with them, for them, and ultimately by them.
Which leaves us with one final, and I think, really powerful question to think about. If we really start to see assessment as a conversation, what are the most important things we should be talking about to empower every single learner to thrive? That's the conversation that truly matters.